Hey everybody, I am doing part 2 of my testimony about the demonic realm, and I'm just going to pick up from here. I recommend that you watch part 1, and also I recommend that you watch the other video I did, Who the Sun Sets Free, because it will take away any fear that you might have of listening to these videos. So basically, I went home with Robert and, he's shaken up. I'm shaken up. He's like, you cannot just be leaving the house without telling me, and at this point, in the very beginning of my walk, I really did feel like I heard the Lord really well. He was teaching me a lot of things. And I just want to put that out there because I think in previous videos I forgot about that. But basically, yeah, in the very beginning, I really, really was hearing the Lord, and He was telling me to obey Robert and to how to be kind and gentle and all of that. So I know I was listening to Him because that was not me ever. It was not me. So anyway, I just want to put that out there. So basically, Robert was helping me out. I was reading this psalm, and it was in the 40s. It was Psalm 40. I don't know, but basically, the words on the page ended up going up off the page, which I'd never seen before, and it was like kind of freaky. It was like all the letters came up and then they dropped down and it rearranged all the words, and it said that basically everybody's going to think I'm crazy and that I will be delivered by the Lord. And there was like a bunch in between, but basically that was the gist of it. And so I was like, well, that's not good. And so I was like, hey, Robert, like, what does this psalm say? And so he wrote it down on a piece of paper for me because I was really like, I couldn't see it, right? And he read it to me, and it was nowhere near what I saw, and it was wild. So basically, that was like kind of the start of all of my demonic attacks at that point. And so basically, from there, at that time, I thought I knew I was listening to the Lord, but then all of a sudden I started hearing things that didn't align with God, but it sounded like God. And it felt like God sometimes even, but it wasn't God, because now that I think about it, the things I was listening to were definitely not scriptural, but I didn't know the scripture, and so I couldn't run off of the scripture to gauge whether or not it was him. And it got more and more ridiculous. Like, they were blaspheming, they were screaming and cussing each other out over, like, I could hear them around me, and they were like screaming and like just being crazy. And then there was one that I thought was like very bossy, and I was listening to it for a while thinking it was God for like a really long time, and it was like leading me to do some like really wild things that was getting me like kind of in trouble with other people. A very religious spirit and a very like military style religious spirit. And I thought, at the time I didn't know God's personality and the fruits of the spirit, so I just went along with it. So basically at this point, I had been hearing so many voices that I could not understand the people that were actually talking to me, and everybody thought I was nuts, which is understandable because I'm sitting here trying desperately to just understand what the person next to me is trying to say, yet I'm hearing like probably 20, 30 voices at once. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I just like blank stare at people a lot. And it was so frustrating because I'm like, I'm not crazy, you guys. Like, this is literally like a demonic battle right now. Like, I don't know what to do. And I hadn't been baptized at that point. And so I got a little bit desperate. And about 3 months in, I was like, okay, like, I had gone to a doctor, and the doctor said there was nothing wrong with me. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And basically, like, I passed all the tests and everything because, of course, spiritual realm let me do that, even though it was pretty crazy. And so they just prescribed me vitamin D. That was my last time I ever went to a doctor. They gave me vitamin D. And Robert was like, oh, and you should take fish oil because it's good for your brain. And, he's worried, like, very worried. And so I was like, okay, so I was taking these giant, like, horse pills of vitamin D, like the most vitamin D that they could prescribe. I think it was 2,000 milligrams of it. And I was taking this fish oil. At the end of it, I still was hearing voices, still not eating, and still not sleeping, and it was not doing anything. And so I was looking at the bottle, kind of frustrated, and I realized vitamin D is sun. Like, I was like, I go in the sun all the time, man. I'm always out there, like, how am I short on vitamin D? These people are crazy. And then I looked at the fish oil and I was like, fish. And I thought about fishers of men and Jesus. And I was like, sun, light, fish, fishers of men, Jesus. And I was like, I need Jesus. I was like, oh, okay. This is about seeking God. This is about God's healing and deliverance. And so I was like, at that point, I felt very led to get rid of all of my medicine. If I'm going to go full send with this, like, I'm going to go full send for God. He says he's my healer and that he said he's going to deliver me, so send it. And I felt the need to do that from God. And because he was talking to me through that, and I do believe that that part was from God. There was a relationship with him still, although it was very messy. So anyway, I was getting desperate, and so God got me into singing. I was able to sing songs and worship God with all my heart, but I couldn't read the Bible. I'd sit there in Ephesians for like 4 hours, and Ephesians is very short, and it's like an hour a page. It's crazy. So like I was really struggling to understand it at this time. And so I was singing, and in those songs, there's a ton of scripture and there's a ton of faith spoken into it. And so my faith was building like crazy, and I was learning scripture whether I knew it or not. It was good for me. And so I was just literally like singing 24/7 as much as I possibly could. That was my thing. And that's what kind of kicked it off. And I felt so much joy and peace in it. And it was the only time my mind was peaceful was when I was singing. So I was just like perma singing, and it was great. I had fun with it. I learned a lot with God. And he still, even though I was very broken, like he still helped so many people in that season through me. The right words were still spoken through me because he does give us utterance, and he was still present. So anyway, one day I was literally just singing at a ball because I saw a demon, and it was on my bed. And I saw the imprint of it where it was sitting after it like came off of my bed. It was still like an imprint there. And I was like, dude, what? And then like I felt like the presence of like a really gnarly demon or the devil. I thought it was the devil. And I felt the need to just sing. And so I was facing the direction of like Israel. I don't know why, but I felt the need to do that, probably because the demon told me to. And so I was like just singing for hours, and I was like, this is not doing anything. At that point I got baptized. I was fully baptized. So I finally at that point was going to a church, and I called the pastor's wife, and I was like, hey, I let her know what was going on, because one of the songs that came up was like telling your friends and not being afraid of telling them the truth. And so I was like, okay, that is definitely time to call her. So I called her, and she came right over with her husband, with the pastor, and they were like praying and trying to cast these things out. And I'm pretty sure it got worse. But what happened was they told me that I should get the study Bible that they use. And in the back of that study Bible, after I ordered it, the Lord led me to all the promises. There's like every promise cross-referenced, pages and pages of every promise God has ever said. And so I felt led to basically do that. And I am going to stop right there because I feel like it's a good stopping point. There is more to this. But anyway, I love you guys, and I will talk to you later.